So moving on with the next topic of your cell structure. In the previous lectures, we have talked about a typical cell. कि cell क्या होता है? How is the cell made up of different organelles? These organelles are the building blocks of a cell. What were the different kinds of organelles? We also talked about them. For example, we talked about the double membrane bound organelles such as nucleus, mitochondria, chloroplast. Then we also talked about cell wall, cell membrane. We also discussed vacuole, Golgi apparatus, a little bit about rough endoplasmic reticulum and ribosomes as well. ठीक है, उसके बाद we also talked about the differences between an animal cell and a plant cell. Typical animal cell, plant cell, prokaryotes, eukaryotic cells में क्या फर्क होते हैं? We also went through some label diagrams because it's very important that you know how to make the label diagrams of animal cells and plant cells as well, and you have to label them with each and every organelle present as well. Moving on to our next topic, which is cell differentiation. Now, how do cells differentiate from each other? Because we have talked about typical animal cells, but within those typical animal cells, some cells are different from each other. For example, within those animal cells also differentiate from each other. We also call them specialized cells. Specialized cells are those which have developed certain characteristics in order to perform particular functions. वो ऐसे cells in that with time they have developed certain characteristics in order to perform particular functions. Cells specialize by undergoing differentiation, which is a process that involves the cell gaining new structures within the cell in order for it to be suited to its functions. Cells can either differentiate once early on and have the ability to differentiate their whole lives. These are also known as the stem cells, जो हम आगे discuss करेंगे in our next topic of the cell structure. तो cell differentiation क्या होती है? For example, a typical animal cell might gain some new structures. For example, hairs, and in order for it to be suited to its function. तो वो differentiate कैसे होगा? One animal cell can be differentiated from one animal. Let's say one animal cell loses its nucleus. उसके पास nucleus खत्म हो जाता है. It becomes another kind of an animal cell. एक के पास hairs develop हो जाते हैं. It becomes another type of animal cell, but it has differentiated into its particular function. For example, the one which has just gained some hairs is performing the function of a ciliated cell now. The one which has just lost its nucleus will be performing the function of a red blood cells. So cells can either differentiate once early on or have the ability to differentiate their whole lives. These are called stem cells. In animals, most cells only differentiate once, but in plants, many cells retain the ability. For example, the first specialized cell that we will be studying over here is known as the ciliated cell. Ciliated cell क्या है? These animal cells, this is basically an animal cell. ठीक है, I'll also mention कि plant cell है, animal cell है. This is the first type and it's a animal cell. Now this animal cell has the cilia. Cilia क्या है? These cilia are basically the extensions of the cell membrane. जब cell membrane की extensions निकल आती हैं, they are known as cilia. वो cilia क्या करता है? It basically helps moving this mucus. ये हमारी throats पे present होता है. ये हमारी throat में present होता है near our trachea. Whenever we gobble up something और जब भी हमारे मुंह में वो bolus होता है, in helping to move the food bolus down our esophagus and our trachea, these ciliated cells are present, and these cilia actually help in moving the bolus by producing a sticky liquid to improve the friction known as a mucus. Other than that, it has the all other typical functions and typical organelles of an animal cell. For example, cell membrane, nucleus, cytoplasm, and mitochondria. All other typical organelles of an animal cell are present in the ciliated cell. The only specialized gain structure, the only specialized structure in a ciliated cell are the cilia, which are extensions of the cell membrane, help in moving the food bolus by producing mucus, and they move it in a flicking motion. ये hairs की तरह flick करती रहती हैं here and there. The second type of specialized cell in your syllabus is the nerve cell. This is also a animal cell. Nerve cell का काम क्या होता है? Electrical impulses, nervous system, coordination, control. ठीक है, ये हमारा nervous system. We have two types of systems. Nervous system होते हैं. ठीक है, एक आपका electrical nervous system है. The second one is the endocrine system. इसका क्या है? Transmitting electrical impulses. Brain के through messages पहुंचाना. Nerve cell, neurons होते हैं. Neurons किससे बने होते हैं? Nerve cell से बने होते हैं. We have sensory neurons, we have relay neurons, we have motor neurons. ठीक है, ये हम लोग सारे कब पढ़ेंगे? इन चैप्टर नंबर 14 जो आपका कोऑर्डिनेशन एंड कंट्रोल वाला चैप्टर है। सो अ नर्व सेल is made up of, अब इसके लिए कुछ स्पेशलाइज्ड स्ट्रक्चर्स क्या आते हैं that differs it from a typical animal cell. Typical animal cell वाले स्ट्रक्चर्स कौन से हैं? राइबोसोम, a typical organelle, cell membrane, cytoplasm and nucleus. ये तो सारे typical organelles हैं, but the specialized structures कौन कौन से हैं? A cell body is an extra specialized function. The dendrites sticking out of the cell body. Then we have an axon, ये जो आपकी पूरी बैकबोन है नर्व सेल की, a myelin sheet made from Schwann cells, and a nerve ending. These are the specialized structures present in a nerve cell that differentiates it from a typical animal cell. और इसका function क्या है? To carry out coordination, control, and transmit electrical nerve impulses from the brain throughout the body. The third type of the cell included in the syllabus is the red blood cell, and this is also a animal cell. ये भी आपके पास एक animal cell ही है. Now a typical red blood cell क्या है? It does not have a nucleus. इसके पास nucleus नहीं होता. It has lost its nucleus. Other than that, a specialized function it has is it is having a biconcave shape due to the lack of nucleus. ये है इसका specialized structure, which makes it and which differentiates it from a typical animal cell. Other than this, it has all the other same functions, जैसे कि it has a cytoplasm and it also has a cell membrane, which is also present in a typical animal cell. Red blood cells को हम RBCs भी कहते हैं. We'll be studying this in chapter number 9, which is your transport in animals. वहाँ आप देखेंगे that red blood cells are responsible for the transportation of blood, for the transportation of oxygen. ये components हैं. One of the components of blood also include red blood cells, along with white blood cells and platelet. Red blood cell का काम होता है, they transport oxygen. They carry oxygen with the help of a molecule known as hemoglobin. ये hemoglobin होता है with iron present as the heme group as well, and it helps in transporting oxygens to the muscle. Oxygen molecules, oxygen muscles को चाहिए होती हैं throughout the body. Red blood cells are responsible for transporting it basically. The fourth type of specialized cell is a sperm cell, and let me tell you, this is also a kind of an animal cell. Sperm cell का काम mainly कहाँ पे आएगा? In the chapter of reproduction. Reproduction में हम पढ़ेंगे that the sperm cell is basically the male gamete. ये क्या है? The male gamete. इसी तरह एक और specialized cell हम next slide में देखेंगे, which is known as the egg cell, the female gamete. इसके भी कुछ typical animal cells वाले structures हैं, जैसे कि it has a cytoplasm, nucleus है, cell membrane है, but the specialized structures are the head, the mitochondria भी typically है, midpiece, फिर आपका tail, flagellum, acrosome. These are the structures that are specialized, and it makes it different from all the other typical animal cells. Mitochondria क्या कर रहे हैं sperm cell में? Basically, they provide energy for the movement of the tail of the sperm cell. क्योंकि sperm cell का काम, we'll be discussing this in the reproduction chapter, is to fuse with the egg cell and carry out fertilization. तो fertilization कब होगी? Fertilization तभी होगी when this sperm cell will move in the blood and reach the egg cell. ये egg cell तक पहुंचेगा कैसे? By swimming. And this flagellum, the tail helps it in swimming. ये जो आपका एक और structure है known as the flagellum. This helps the sperm cell in moving inside the blood and finally reaching the egg cell so it can mate and carry out fertilizations by fusing with the cell membrane of the egg cell. Other than that, it has an acrosome. Acrosome का हम discuss करेंगे that this has many enzymes. Acrosome के अंदर बहुत से different enzymes होते हैं which helps in the digestion of the cell membrane of egg cell. Egg cell की जो cell membrane होती है उसको digest कर लेता है ये acrosome and goes inside the egg cell. Egg cell is the fifth type and it's also a specialized animal cell as well. इसको भी हम reproduction में पढ़ेंगे and this is basically the female gamete. ये आपके पास क्या है? This is basically the female gamete. इसके पास भी एक cytoplasm है, nucleus है, mitochondrion है, cell membrane है, but the specialized structures, zona pellucida, another outermost layer, yolk droplets, or follicle cells. These follicle cells present in the outer surface of the zona pellucida are to be broken down. When? वो कब broke down होते हैं? जब एक sperm cell आता है. When a sperm cell reaches an egg cell, उसकी जो acrosome होता है, we studied in the previous slide. ये देखिए, ये जो acrosome है, the tip of the sperm cell actually breaks down the cell membrane by the help of enzymes and fuses with the egg cell. We would be doing this in detail in the reproduction chapter, reproduction in mammals. So no need to go through the whole fertilization process as well. Just telling you that how are cells different from each other and what is the specialization of cells.